Are You With Julian on the brown note, Dying in the Heat once again, and the Caroline Polachek, and the album Desire I Want to Turn Into You is probably the most acclaimed major release of the year so far, and why that is crap. So Caroline Polachek is from the band Chairlift, who, again, I did listen to one album. I had one album from Chairlift. I think it was Something. They did 3 albums and kind of gave up in 2016. I think it was the album Something, and I didn't rate it at all. I couldn't really understand what the interest in them was. They seemed a very sort of post-purity ring, but much less interesting act. And with stuff like Grimes going on, which will come up a lot in this review, I just didn't see how they were even close to being in the mix of interesting forward pop music. We talk a lot about future pop, and I didn't really get that. So this is Polachek's second album after Pang in 2019, and critics have gone nuts over it, and I've got a different take on things. So the opener, it's possibly the standout, if there is any standout tracks on the album, is the opener, Welcome to My Island. But the opening bit is a little bit too brassy, and something that crops up over and over again is how trite the lyrics are. I just reviewed the Fever Ray album and complimented the lyrics on it. Never happens on this album. But the grandiose chorus is good, and the beat's really heavy. It's not much of a song, to be honest, beyond a chorus, which is another allegation I'd probably level at a lot of this album, but it has the biggest chorus on the album. It sounds great, and I imagine it would sound great in an isolated clip on an advert. And the breakdown was a bit cringe. Something that comes up on Pretty Impossible, which is slightly more of a song, if a lesser song. The beats and the synths on it are just really old-fashioned, like you would have heard on mid-90s trip-hop, which in this day and age, where that kind of use of drum programming, synth programming, sub-bass and everything can create really futuristic versions of pop music. I don't see that at all here. The Bunny as a Rider, I thought, was a much stronger track overall. It wasn't just based around a hook. The vocals often on this album and her singing are often excellent. It's a much stronger song. It's like a sort of lighter than air future R&B pop song. Start to finish, the strongest yet. Sunset, number 4. No Regrets, 'Cause You're My Sunset. People are like raving about this. Emperor's New Clothes is something that really comes to mind. And the fact that they use a bog standard flamenco guitar made me think of Rosalia and how future pop she deals with it. On something like Moto Mami, it's in a different, it's not one league different, it's multiple leagues different. If you listen to the synth and drum programming on that, and the use of instrumentation and arrangements, it is just, this is such an ordinary album. Crude Drawing of an Angel, really slight, really forgettable. I Believe has got a strong chorus, but again, the production's really dated. There just aren't any interesting musical elements across this whole album. And the verses, again, on a lot of these tracks were really dull. Funnily enough, Grimes and Dido show up on this on the track 7, Fly to You, and the production's immediately a much more interesting one. The sub bass on there and the kick drums on it and everything. It stands out, and so does Grimes' voice as having a lot more sort of personality, even though she's not as good a singer as Caroline Polachek, I don't think, but her voice has more personality to it. But it would still be a very middling Grimes track. And I think one of the things that I thought when I saw the 2 guests on this is that this album is far closer to being that sort of Muzak, middle of the road Dido than it is to being art pop like Grimes. Blood and Butter track 8, another middling track, tepid. Not sure about the bagpipes on the breakdown. Again, even if you're going to do that, go hard. Everything here just sort of arrives and dissipates as soon as it's happening, and it doesn't happen hard enough. Hope Drunk Everlasting, track 9, boring. 10 is Butterfly Net. Again, very dull. Butterfly Net. The chorus is trying to catch your love. Where are these critics getting this shit from? The track 11, Smoke, rhymes volcano with say no, and she wheels out these na 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 na. She seems to do it on a lot of the tracks on here. This sort of very ordinary, tepid na na hook, and a really dull track to end on, Billions. Although the beat is at least slightly more interesting, but it's a flat way to end the album. So other than the bombastically loud chorus that opens the album, there's not really any standout tracks. Everything here, I mean, everyone's like paying out on Grimes because she married Elon Musk, which is okay, fair enough. If Grimes released this album, we'd all be saying it was the least interesting, least forward-thinking and weakest Grimes album. Everything that Grimes has done, including her last album, what's the flaw with this? And it's also Post-Purity Ring, who emerged about 12 years ago or whatever. Their debut album set the template for a lot of female vocal future pop since, and everything here is so much weaker than that and sounds like it was made before that. And when I think of people like Rosalia, who are like at the cutting edge of broadly modern pop, this is just such weak background music. I've got to think that there's an awful lot of music journalists out there now that think TikTok is really neat. I can't explain it in any other way. So I think this is actually a very weak album. It's not something I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to give it Caroline Polachek, Desire I Want to Turn Into You, a 4 out of 10.